Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Partial Historians. I am Dr. Greenfield, and beside me, elegant as ever, is...
In my Rock is Dead t-shirt, Dr. Adness, at your beck and call, Dr. G.
I'm so glad. I mean, I love it when you're my slave.
Thank you. I do my best. But yeah, today we continue.
We do. We continue. When we left you last, it was on a cliffhanger.
Yes.
Oh my god.
We've been dealing with Coriolanus. He's been our big stop-off point in this history of Rome from the founding of the city that we've been tracing for the past, I don't know, year? Maybe. Who knows?
It's been a while now.
Yeah, and Coriolanus had become an enemy of his own people. How unjust.
Yes, and it's his sense of justice that really propels him to seek out ultimate vengeance.
That's right, and he's pretty much poised to do so. And the Romans would be crapping their little... What do you call those things?
Boots.
Crapping their boots. Wow, they are terrifying. Skipping the underwear straight away.
When things fall down.
I think it's like a subiculum? I don't know.
Yeah, let's not get there.
Whatever. It's the stuff that carries your undercarriage.
Ooh.
Anywho, so the Romans are freaking out.
Yeah, the Romans haven't done a very good job of getting themselves organised.
No.
Coriolanus has exploited the factionalism that is now Roman politics.
Between the patricians and the plebeians.
And now he is pretty much at the gates of the city with a giant Volscian army.
Yeah, exactly. And...
having laid waste to most of South Italy at this point in time.
Yeah, the Latins have been just trodden all over, unfortunately. The Romans, as they tend to do, though, when push comes to shove, whilst they were bickering amongst themselves and not agreeing on what to do in the lead up to this event, they do seem to unite right at the last second.
They do.
Yeah.
They do. Everybody gets together, senators and tribunes, and they think, look, maybe we should forgive Coriolanus. Maybe that is...
ambassadors!
Maybe that would be good.
Yeah.
Dionysius of Halicarnassus doesn't seem to be buying this as a historian. And he goes on one of his moments of excursus where he's like, actually, you might be curious about this change in attitude.
I am curious, Dionysius. Please, do go on.
And then basically is like, we don't know why. Whether it's because they're sounding out the sentiment of the populace and trying to see if they can get anybody to yield through being compassionate, whether people want to clear themselves of particular accusations because the patricians and the plebeians are accusing each other within the city of various things.
True, this is true.
Or what their purpose is, and he basically says it's kept secret.
Well, Livy seems to indicate, this is obviously pretty obvious, but nonetheless, Livy seems to indicate that essentially, although they are united in their fear, they're not necessarily agreeing about how to go about dealing with this situation, and the plebeians are basically saying to the patricians, we want to avoid war at all costs. And I can get that, because Coriolanus seems to have had nothing but
success.
Victories, yeah.
Yes, resounding success.
Yeah, not to mention they've seen him in action. They know what he can do. He's a war machine. God.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the plebeians perhaps are behind this whole idea of sending ambassadors, because the senators can bring themselves to do that.
Yeah.
And the plebeians don't want to have the war. Presumably no one wants to have the war, because... let's face it.
Apparently there's no official vote taken on this. There's no sort of decree passed about what the action should be.
No.
So there is, there's obviously some issues. And the chaos in the city that comes about when the Romans can actually see Coriolanus' army setting up shop, getting ready for a bit of a siege.
Yeah.
And confusion.
Ambassadors is the way to go. Diplomacy.
Yeah.
Diplomacy.
Well, diplomacy, but confusion, first of all. Some people take up arms being like, we got to get out there.
I'm ready to go. I've got my sword.
Yeah. Others run to the gates being like, we just got to do it. And some...
What, run to the gates?
Yeah, you're running to the gates of the city because they're like, well, we've got to push forward this attack,
Oh.
Because they're like, and they don't have anybody
they were tearing down their own city.
No. Let the man in. Just tear it down. Some people are giving out arms to their slaves.
Yep.
And they're like, look, let's take a defensive hold on the capital.
Yep.
And women are apparently running through the streets, crying, lamenting, praying to the gods, running into temples.
They don't do anything sensible.
Yeah. Look, I mean, it's a bit horrific. I mean, ancient history is not great to women.
No.
But lamenting is kind of where they're at.
Sure.
The plebeians flock into the forum, and they're like, patricians, something must be done. We need to make a decision.
Yeah.
And
God, the patricians are slow to make decisions. I mean, seriously, this guy is sitting outside with an army.
Yeah.
Do something for
It's not like for the last couple of months he hasn't been doing exactly the same thing in the countryside. So it's like they know he's there.
And this is the one time where I would definitively say to them, your money can't protect you.
Also, who's going to lead your army? I don't know.
Exactly, yeah.
And so they choose 5 ex-consuls, which is probably all they've got at this point, because Roman history is pretty short,
That's
you know.
true.
They choose 5 ex-consuls, like all real close buddy friends with Coriolanus prior to exile.
Yeah.
And they're like, these are the men to send.
Yeah.
You know, if anybody can turn that guy around, it's going to be his patrician buddy.
Yes. Well, see, Livy, again, speeds through all of this. He basically just says that there are 3 embassies and that Coriolanus only answers the first.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, that Coriolanus has a...
I really wish I hadn't read Minucius's 10-page speech.
I know, right? Oh, my God. Yeah. Livy's account just has these 3 embassies happening that Coriolanus sends back a very simple answer to the first, and that is, give the Volscians back their land, and then we'll talk.
Yeah.
But he won't listen to any other embassy, even though the third one is made up of priests. My God, does the man have no humility?
Apparently not.
So I'm guessing I'm just going to be able to sit back now and listen to a long story.
Boy, do I have a narrative for you.
I'm getting really comfortable listening. Can you hear? Now I'm closer, now I'm further away.
I've entitled this section,
Yeah.
The Speech of Marcus Minucius.
That sounds like a...
Because it goes on and on
Yeah,
and on.
Alright, give me the highlights, go.
Minucius is really interested in the concept of moderatio.
Ah.
So he's arguing for moderation.
Now this is... Sorry, I'm already interrupting. This is the guy that spoke about the stomach. Isn't it?
Is it? I can't recall.
Isn't this
Maybe.
the guy,
I think it might have been, actually. Yeah.
I have a feeling, listeners, that this is the guy that when the patricians want the plebeians to get off their high horse in their sacred mount and come back and just deal, they send this guy to give a speech about how the Roman state is like a body, and the patricians are like a stomach, and blah, 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 blah.
Yes. Yes, we are the ones that feed everybody.
If it's not the same guy, it's a relative, I swear to God. Anyway.
No, I think it's the same guy.
Okay, I think it's the same guy.
So he talks about moderatio being the key thing here.
Yeah.
And he's like, you're violating the laws of nature. You're confounding the duties of religion.
Wow.
By engaging in these things. He's like...
Is that because it's against his own countrymen?
He's not using reason.
Well, I think I bet to differ.
He's not exhibiting moderation.
That's true.
And he's breaking natural laws. Like, you know, the gods are not going to be happy about this, are they? Obviously.
Yes, because the gods believe in nationalities.
Well, the gods believe in Rome.
That's true. Yes.
I'm pretty sure that's where Minucius is coming from here.
Gotcha.
And so he does this huge discourse on justice, first of all. And he's like, look, I know you're into justice.
Yeah.
I know the plebeians sought to kill you. And they put you on trial and they accuse you of tyranny. All of these things, going through all the stuff, just like bring it back to the surface, you know.
Just in case you've forgotten how you came to be here.
But it's because they're scared of you. You know?
You're just so awesome, and I mean that in a literal sense. You are awesome.
Yeah, and he's like, and what about the Senate? You know, don't treat us like the enemy. It's clearly the plebeians. and you've decided to have a war with Rome. And it's like, and it's not just about plebeians, is it? And then he pulls out the old, what about the women and children?
Oh, good. Good.
And he's like, and then what about the desecration? You've been pillaging the land.
Oh, that's it? There's no more about the women and children?
Yeah, no, they're just going to mention.
Okay, sorry. There's going to be more about that.
Yeah. No way. Yeah, you know, they're just dropped in there.
They're not British, what I'm thinking.
The women and children have a small part to play here.
True.
And he's like, what about them? They're innocent. So he's like, the Senate and the women and children are all innocent. It's really only the plebeians that you've got an issue with here. And that's like, what, less than a third of the population?
Yeah.
You know, that I've just mentioned.
When you do the maths, I think you're fine.
I think you're fine. You're not really against Rome at all. Just against this section. Like, come on. Do we all need to suffer?
I'm enjoying this a lot. Yeah.
But he also mentions that, like, during the pillaging phase, a lot of sepulchres, shrines, altars, and temples outside the walls have been destroyed. He's like, well, what about the gods, man?
Yeah.
Have you thought about the gods?
Clearly not, because you've been destroying things.
Yeah.
Reckless.
And then he's like, and then he goes into a bit of a pleading phase, like, haven't you punished us enough? Like, look at what you've achieved so far. You've been very successful.
Can I show you the shitty boots?
Yeah, check out these boots.
Yeah.
Currently full of my scared shit.
You got us.
Yeah.
Oh, joke's over, man.
Yeah, and he's like, if you're interested in moderatio, then maybe it's time to exhibit it.
Yeah.
You claim to be one of these best men. I'm really interested in seeing some of that right now.
Wow. I'm just getting like, I feel I'm getting a very, this is a mother with a toddler type conversation.
Yeah. So he's like, everyone's willing to forgive you, reverse your banishment.
Can they forget their? Can they?
Yeah, and then he's like, think of the fatherland.
Fatherland.
The nationalism part.
Yeah.
So
he's pulled out all the stops.
Yeah, well, not only that,
but
he also does a bit of an arrogant thing. He's like, it's going to be pretty impossible to beat us, let's face it.
Yeah.
He's like, you've only got a Volscian army.
Oh, my goodness. Rome, what are you doing?
And he's like, it doesn't matter at this point what you do. Even if you win, your reputation is screwed. And if you lose, your reputation is screwed with Romans. So why would you do this?
But if he kills all the Romans, then the Volscians just think he's great.
Nevertheless.
Yeah. I'm just saying from Coriolanus' point of view, I'm being devil's advocate here.
Look, Dionysius is loving his moment to do some rhetoric, and he's gone hardcore.
He really has.
And
no stone left unturned here.
Because Minucius is saying things like, even if you manage to take us, what about all of our allies? And you're like, those guys that ran away earlier.
I was going to say, haven't they all pulled the plug or been destroyed already?
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm feeling that this is a really hard bluff right now.
Yeah.
And I'm like, my note here is like, it's pretty crazy to claim this, considering like Coriolanus already knows that people have defected.
Yeah.
And also has
he can beat them.
Yeah, and has smudged the Latins into the ground as he's gotten closer.
If I were Coriolanus, I'd be turning to my massive pile of booty right now and just pointing.
He's like, check it out.
Yeah.
Can you take me? I don't think you can.
Yeah.
But wait for it.
Okay.
Minucius isn't done yet.
I don't know what else you can add to this. Yeah.
He's like, look, the gods are on our side.
Okay.
So you've had a pretty good run, but let's think about it. Are the gods really going to let you take Rome?
The gods have just been nice to you up until now.
Yeah, exactly.
They knew you were upset, so they turned a blind eye.
Yeah. He's like, you should be interested in things like showing some courage. The courage to know when to give up. You should be showing some prudence when to step back. And what's the point of the sort of glory you're going for if you have an unhappy mother, if you have an unhappy wife, if your sons can't live because of what you've done?
Now, see, that is actually something I praise Minucius for bringing up, because as we know, family pietas, it's a big deal. Coriolanus, as we know, Freud would have loved this guy. Check that up. Because he's all over his mother. They have a very tight relationship. And the sons.
What's going to happen with the sons?
Yeah, that is a big thing, actually.
Yeah, so Minucius' sort of finale is like, think about what you'll be known as. At this point, what are your options? You're going to be a slayer of your mother, because she's going to get killed.
Yeah, okay.
And it's like, you're going to be considered a murderer of your wife because she's going to get killed. Win or lose, it's not ending well for you. And not to mention, like, the assassin of your own children. Yeah. Because by ruining your own reputation, you ruin them.
And it's not an honourable situation like with Brutus, where you were punishing your children for being treasonous.
No, they're innocent.
They've done nothing but been loyal Romans.
And then, as like his parting shot, and he's like, need I mention the Furies?
Okay. I thought you were going to say the Führer. I'm like, whoa.
Whoa.
Who did this translation?
Time travel.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And he's like, the Furies are going to come after you, man. Like, think about it. Big time.
This is very Oedipal.
Yeah. I feel like this is very much the Greek influence coming into play here.
Yeah.
The Romans do have a relative equivalent.
Sure. I'd say the Romans still respect mothers and sons.
Yeah.
The bonds you have with them. But yeah, this is getting rather Greek. This is getting Greek.
This is getting quite Greek tragedy at this point. And he's like, return to your mother's affectionate embrace and your wife's sweet welcome. Come back to the country as a most honourable repayment of the debt you owe your mother and your wife, etc., etc. Coriolanus sort of stands up and he's like, look, you're my friend.
Even after all that.
Yeah, we're friends.
Yeah.
I'm super grateful that we're friends. And he's like, But those guys in that city over there that you just worked out from have treated me terribly, and I am not going to forgive them.
Wow, way to hold a grudge.
Just not gonna do it.
Yeah, see, now this is getting mafioso. Like, you can't forgive.
Yeah.
You must wrong the right.
And he's like, where's the satisfaction?
Right the wrong, sorry.
Wrong the right. No.
Yeah.
And he starts getting a bit sassy. And he's like, what sort of satisfaction can I obtain from being restored to a city like this?
Ooh.
Where vice is what rules, not virtue.
Nice comeback, Coriolanus.
Yeah. Where punishment awaits the innocent, but criminals go free.
Yeah. And this would be Dionysius, once again, really going to town with the rhetoric, because, of course, if you want to be a true rhetorician, you argue both sides.
Yeah. Oh, and
Sorry,
he goes
continue.
on.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Just wanted to flag that before we got too deep into Coriolanus.
Oh, yeah. Look, and it's some good rhetoric.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm largely enjoying it.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He's like, you're talking about the guy who was crowned for valor with the expulsion of the kings.
Oh, yeah.
You're talking to this guy.
Yeah.
And he's like, all of the valor that I have demonstrated throughout my career and the way that I've been treated, no. No forgiveness for you guys.
Yep. I hear you, Coriolanus.
And he's like,
it's tough.
Maybe if I'd been the sort of guy that had a really sorted private life, but nobody ever gets expelled for that, do they? Also, I don't have a sorted private life. He's like, I am unbesmirched. Nice. By gossip.
Unbesmirched.
Unbesmirched. Yeah. I have always simply argued for the continuation of tradition. The forefathers, the honourable principles of Rome. So, he's like, either Rome has virtue and hates virtue, I should say. Either Rome hates virtue,
Yep.
and that's why I got exiled, or you are ruled by the baser elements. Baser elements here is code for plebeians.
Uh-oh. Now them is fighting words.
And he's like, and whichever one it is, I don't want any part of that.
Yeah.
The city is terrible.
Coriolanus, you're painting a good picture here.
And he's like, if you take me back into that city and I say, yeah, I'm going back, I'm just setting myself up as a sacrifice. Because I'm not going to change. I'm still virtuous.
Yeah.
I still want the best rule for the Rome. I still want to follow the traditions and principles. So what's going to happen to me? I get exiled again?
I think I can sum up what Coriolanus is trying to say here. Basically, he's trying to say, I'm too sexy for my shirt. Too sexy for my shirt. And it hurts. And I'm too sexy for the body. Sorry, I'll stop.
The body politic.
Yeah.
The body politic.
Bam. Sorry, continue.
Yeah. And he starts to bring in some little side notes to satisfy the Volscian witnesses, because this conversation is happening in front of the best of the Volscian army as well.
The pressure is on.
Yeah. These are public speeches.
Yeah.
And then he's like, all right, how about it? The gods are on my side. No question. Have you seen what I've just done? Have you seen the last couple of months?
To be fair, again, I can see his point because he has had a lot of victories.
And he's like, I don't see this going wrong for me.
No.
And he's like, friendship's not going to be enough.
This is sounding really bad for Rome.
Yeah, he kind of sums up saying, look, I'm just.
Yep.
I'm honourable. And
handsome.
And the gods like what I'm doing.
Okay.
Because I wouldn't have gotten this far if they did not.
And the Romans can't really come back with, we've had internal dissension and our allies stripped of us. Ha! Take that, Coriolanus.
Yeah. So his final parting shot is okay, so here's the deal. Volscians want their land back.
Okay, finally we meet. Our accounts meet.
Yes.
20 pages later.
It took a long time to get there.
Okay.
He's like, so here's the deal.
Yeah.
I know we proposed it before and you said no.
Yes.
But this is what we'd like.
Yep.
Volscians like all their land back.
Yep.
And then we'll go away.
In Plutarch, he actually also throws in that the Latins would like civic rights.
Ooh.
I know. Yeah. Interesting, right?
No, he doesn't say much about the Latins except to say that the Volscians want a treaty that's on the same sort of terms as what the Latins
I think
had.
what he's getting at here is he kind of hints that he's because he is so just, I suppose the way he handled conquering those innumerable cities is that he is just in the way that he goes about doing that.
Yes.
And maybe that's part of this, I don't know.
Quite possibly.
Yeah.
So he's like, look, so that's the deal.
Yeah.
I'm going to give you 30 days to think about it. I'm even going to do the honour of removing the army
See, that's
from the city.
This is where Plutarch is using Dionysius, because Livy doesn't mention anything like this. He just says, there were 3 embassies. Coriolanus only replied to the first and ignored the rest. But Plutarch in his Coriolanus also has this whole idea of, I'll give you 30 days to think about it.
Yeah. So he's like, look, I'll give you some thinking time. Go back, debate it amongst yourselves. I'm going to take my army.
Just camp out here.
Yeah, well, I'll come back in 30 days.
Yeah.
In 30 days, Coriolanus takes another 7 cities.
That's impressive.
So he goes quite quickly, and this is where cities like Longula, Satricum, Setia,
so
all
that's the ones that I named way back at the beginning because Livy is way messed up.
So that list for Dionysius comes in this 30 days. And it's like, how about Coriolanus's take 7 cities in 30 days tour of the Latin countryside?
You see, Plutarch actually paints a slightly different picture here. And I don't know whether this pops up later in Dionysius, but this is where Plutarch starts to say, well, this whole 30-day delay, it is quite a lengthy time, and some of the Volscians think it's too long. That maybe Coriolanus is having second thoughts.
Interesting.
That maybe he isn't as committed as he said he was. That maybe there's something suspicious going on here, and they don't like it. They don't like it one bit.
Curious.
Yes.
Curious.
So some Volscians start to conspire against Coriolanus.
Nice.
Yeah. Now, Tullus, who had been part of this whole bromance and let's welcome Coriolanus party, he starts to think back to all the wrongs that Coriolanus once did him when they were enemies. And this seems to have been brought up by the fact that when the Romans send out the embassy, and I mean, let's face it, in Plutarch, the Roman embassy is initially his relatives, senators that he's going to listen to, etc. But nonetheless, Tullus still feels slighted that he's being overlooked. By the Volscians as well, not just the Romans. He's being overlooked by everybody. He was once an important man.
He chose the defensive army.
Well, yeah. But anyway, he basically says, I demand that Coriolanus be shoved out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Oh, yeah. Because he just wants to be the big man around campus again.
Yeah.
He wants the Volscians to be looking to him, to be worshipping him.
Yeah. Coriolanus has done his part, and now I won my share of the sweet cake that I set up for myself earlier.
Yeah, exactly. And it's then that Plutarch starts talking about what you were talking about, the capturing of Rome's allies, 7 large cities. And I love the fact that Plutarch says it's because Coriolanus isn't lazy.
Yeah, clearly not a lazy man.
No. He does what he does best. Anywho.
That is significantly different from what we get in Dionysius. There's no hint of dissension from the Volscians or Tullus at this point in time.
Well, this is the thing. It's not that I necessarily want to believe Plutarch, but at the same time, I can kind of see where they're coming from. 30 days is a long time.
Yeah, it is a long time.
Yeah.
And the Romans come back with a pretty poor counteroffer after 30 days.
I know. The Romans are like just letting Coriolanus run riot, attack these 7 large cities that he takes.
Yeah.
And pretty much, once again in my account, the Romans turn up after 30 days and say, so this is what we've come to. Please stop attacking us. Please. Just want to order you.
Why don't you want to be friends?
Please. We'll give them Volscian rights. I promise I swear to stop the war. They don't do it like that, of course, because they're Romans. But that's what they're doing inside, I can tell.
I think so, perhaps, yeah. So the Romans seem to make a counter offer.
Yeah.
The Volscians need to get out of their territory, and then they can treat.
Well,
it's a pretty poor effort from the Roman Spartans. They're like, no, you leave. No, you leave.
Honestly.
And it's like, well, the Volscians have been asking for their stuff back for a while now, guys. So being all whiny about, like, what are you doing in front of my city? I don't think it's really going to play very well.
Yeah, well, Coriolanus basically says at the end of all this second, I guess, I don't know, offer, if you can call it that, that he's not even going to respond because he's a general of the Volscians now. But as a Roman, he suggests they should just grant the terms he asked for within 3 days. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Don't be douchebags, guys.
Coriolanus basically tells them to be better.
Yeah.
Have you thought about coming to a better decision, guys?
Yeah.
Because that's not really an option.
Yeah, and it's at this point in Plutarch that the next embassy comes, the 3rd embassy, which is, of course, made up of priests.
Yeah, I think this is really, I mean, for me, this is fascinating.
Yes, you are religious stuff.
I love it when this sort of stuff happens. You're like, all right, so, maybe it's the sign that we need to get the gods involved for reals. Because the Romans, I think on
They're
some level...
representatives on Earth,
must be starting to doubt whether the gods are really on their side.
Yeah.
Let's get the pontiffs and the augurs and the other priests involved, and we'll send them out. And it doesn't really go so well.
No, Coriolanus ignores what they have to
Coriolanus doesn't
say.
even talk to them.
No.
He's just like, no.
Demands are the same. Go away.
Yeah, so Volscians would still like their land back. And he's like, I'm not interested in any future negotiations.
Now,
and he starts to prepare for a siege.
yeah, and this is where I start to get excited, Dr. G. Do you know why?
Why?
It's because we finally have some women again. Very exciting.
So exciting that I spilled my glass.
It's all right. It's not
out of thrillingness.
It's okay. It's okay. The water's not going to hurt anything.
No, it's
All
fine.
right. Yeah. Okay. Collective gasp. Women. Oh my god. Yeah. So, women actually popping up in Roman history. Yes, you heard it here first. It's been a long time since we've been able to do this.
I don't know if we've seen a woman for a while.
We really haven't, so I'm very excited. Okay. So, this is how it plays out. As you can imagine, Dr. G, everyone's still a little bit panicky back in Rome about this whole situation because it's not really getting resolved. Now, Livy, of course, skips straight to the good bit. Where he starts where he starts talking about how the matrons assemble around Veturia, the mother of Coriolanus, and Volumnia, his wife. I suppose I should call them Volumnia, but that's kind of weird.
Don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah. And he's not sure whether they're doing this because the government has put them up to it or whether because they're just scaredy cats and they want to group together. Okay, but Plutarch gives a little bit more background detail. Does Dionysius go into a little bit more build up for the women's involvement?
There is a lot of detail.
Ooh, okay.
Oh yeah,
Right.
and you know there are women giving significant speeches as well.
Really?
Yeah,
Wow.
It turns out they're versed in rhetoric. Who'd have thought?
Lay it on me.
Not just yet. Soon.
Okay, fair enough, yeah. In Plutarch's account, the women are praying, of course, visiting temples, because, you know, that's what they can offer at this point in time.
Crying.
Yeah, supplication. And amongst the women who are doing this is Valeria, the sister of Publicola.
Oh,
Or
yes.
Publicola. What did we decide on? Publicola or Publicola?
Publicola.
Okay, good. Okay, the sister of Publicola, who, listeners of the Partial Historians might remember, was a very popular man around town in Rome.
So popular, he has public in his name.
That's right, exactly, yeah. So she, because he was so popular, once upon a time, when he was still alive, she's still looked at as, you know, high up there, right up there, deserving of respect. Okay, and she basically says, you know what, women? Let's all get together and go and see Coriolanus' mother. Let's go right to the source. Literally, he came out of her.
Indeed,
Yeah.
he did.
And they they present themselves to Volumnia, and basically say that we are not here because of what the consuls want us to do or the Senate want us to do. We are here on the orders of God.
Oh,
Or
interesting.
Gods.
The gods.
The gods,
yeah.
yeah.
have sent us on
Yep.
a sacred mission to save Rome.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And so all the other women crowd around Valeria and they say, yes, we are. And so Volumnia talks about how horrified she is by the whole situation. About how it's not just the pressure, obviously, of having a Volscian army outside the doors, but the additional shame and misery of the person leading that army being Coriolanus. The fact that his reputation is now in tatters, that they can no longer really consider him like a virtuous man. It's all bad for them, as you can imagine, and they're feeling it pretty keenly because he used to be all about the duty.
All about the duty.
That's right. Because it's all about the duty. Anywho, what's going on in your account with the ladies?
Well, the women do step in.
Right.
So in, like, chaos, as usual, it
Yeah.
would seem in Rome at this point.
Of course.
Women abandon seclusion.
Ooh.
And
What
propriety.
does that mean? Okay, yeah.
The hint that maybe, well,
They're out in
the
the town,
Greeks
out in
at
the
least,
streets.
the women were in the house.
Yes.
They ran to the shrines of the gods with
Yep.
lamentations, threw themselves at the feet of statues,
Yep.
and cried and supplicated,
Yep.
etc. And Valeria emerges out of this sort of mass
She is in your
as a
account.
very distinguished matron.
Yes.
And she calls upon the women and encourages them to band together. She's like, look, the hope of the state now rests with us, women. The men have tried, the men have failed.
Yeah.
It's, now we're up to us.
Yeah.
So, Our strength is goodwill and our speech. So
interesting.
It's not arms.
Okay.
It's our words and our general sense of compassion. So let's go to the house of Etruria, the mother of Coriolanus, and let's entreat her to do something. Go to the enemy camp.
Oh, so she has a different name in this account. Interesting.
Yes, and Volumnia is the wife.
Interesting.
Yeah, there is variance on these characters.
See, in Plutarch's account, Volumnia I think is the mother, and Virgilia is the wife.
Yeah. There's no consensus in our source material for
what a
these
shock!
women.
Getting the women's names
women.
right.
They all started with V.
Yeah.
Could have been any of them. So Vitruvia is the mother in this account. And they're like, look, we need to go to her and convince her to go to the camp and have a talk with her son.
Yep.
That's what she needs to do.
Yep.
And they're kind of like, Volumnia is there and she's in the same house as well. But like, they don't really direct it so much at her.
Yeah.
And...
No, it does seem to be like join us and help us and let's do something about that. Because that's pretty much what... Volumnia gets that message loud and clear in my account too, like the end of her little speech about the shame and how country came before everything for Coriolanus once upon a time. She says, let's go supplicate him directly.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Now it takes a little bit of time in Dionysus' account.
Oh,
Surprise! Surprise! So Valeria makes her case to Vitruvia. This is what you need to do.
Yeah.
And you need to persuade him, the sacrifices, the rites, surely if you lay down at his feet, he'll realize what he needs to do.
Yeah.
And we shall show ourselves to be the true descendants of the women who put an end to the war between Romulus and the Sabines. And I was like,
someone has an idea of herself.
Ooh, somebody thinks they're reaching right for the top.
Yeah.
And Vitruvia's like, I don't think this is a good idea.
Really? That surprises
She's
me.
like, Coriolanus hates us.
What?
Yeah.
What, women or just his women folk?
No, she says he has hated his whole family together with his country. It would never have gone to this point. Yeah,
Gotcha.
So, he came home. She starts to describe how he came home after he got, his perpetual banishment.
Yeah.
And he found us sitting at home and we're mourning and lamenting and stuff, and he doesn't even care. And...
I think I have heard about this stuff, yeah. You see his own suffering, Coriolanus.
Yeah. He's unmoved. Tearless as a stone.
Duh.
And he says, look, I'm lost to you, mother, and to you, Volumnia, my best wife. I've been exiled. And he's like, I'm leaving now. And basically is like, I must go. My manhood and valor have been compromised by the outcome of this trial.
Nothing else matters.
Yeah, and he's like, and he doesn't hug anybody or whatever, and he's like, he just gets out of there. And he's like, I'm no longer your son,
Wow.
And...
That's harsh, man.
And so she's like, Luca, so I don't know how this is going to go.
Well, that's fair enough, I suppose. I would have the same doubts.
Yeah, she's like, so I'm not sure that approaching him is necessarily going to be a good idea.
Yeah. Maybe you'd be better off by yourself.
And she concludes her speech, and Valeria's like, I don't think we can accept that. And she's like, ladies, just keep lamenting. Lots of pleading.
Lament your hearts out.
Just keep going, because this needs to happen.
Yeah.
And Vitruvia is sort of like, at the end of this, is like, fine, look, I'll do the thing, just stop. She's like, but I really don't think it's going to work.
Wow, okay, that is quite a different take on things.
Yeah, and then this gets taken to the Senate, and they're like, well, it could be bad if all the women go outside the city. They could all just get raped, couldn't they?
The Sabine reference again.
This could be terrible. And it's like, what's going to happen? Maybe we should just send a small delegation of women, not all the women.
Every single female we possess.
Yeah. What should we do?
Yeah.
And they eventually decide that, look, they can go. Sort of a dark moment for the Senate, I would have thought. Being like, oh, well, nothing else has worked. I suppose let's just let the women have a try.
And see, this is why I have to admit that I feel like there must be something going on here, as in Coriolanus isn't just a mythical figure. Because why would the Romans write this myth in which the women essentially...
In which they've been emasculated themselves to such a degree.
Being so completely useless. I don't understand it, but anyway, yeah.
I think it's to demonstrate Coriolanus as a quintessential Roman patrician. I think this is going to be a story it's clearly not a plebeian tradition. This is clearly about how do you be the best man in a bad situation. And it turns out you have to destroy the city. And that means that it's a warning for plebeians.
Yeah, okay.
On some level.
The patricians never back down.
Well, and also that you can only take things so far, or you should only push things so far.
Yeah.
And actually you do need to accept the wisdom of the elders.
And the depths of the problem is exemplified by the fact that women are...
Yeah. You know, things could get so bad that the women have to get you out of trouble.
Good call. Okay, fair enough. Continue.
Yeah. Needless to say,
yes.
Coriolanus is astonished by the approach of a whole bunch of women.
Yes, we see Plutarch, because things aren't seemingly so negative between him and the women folk, all of the enemies that observe the women approaching are stunned into reverence and silence because it's just crazy to see all these women in the camp. Coriolanus is relaxing on his tribunal, as you do as a military leader, and he is in total shock, but quickly runs to meet them, gives his mother this super long hug, then hugs his wife and then his children. So he's seemingly pretty glad to see them in my account. How does he react in yours?
His astonishment means that he behaves in a really interesting fashion. He actually...
Human?
I know, surprisingly.
Yeah.
He does go with a few of his men to meet his mother.
Yeah.
He orders his lictors to stand aside.
Lictors.
To take the axes out of the fasces.
Way to lay it out, Coriolanus.
Yeah, and he's like
pulling out all the stuff.
He's like, "Whoa, Mum's come to visit. Better hide the axes. Hide the axes." And then when
I just want to beat her, not kill her.
Yeah. Oh no, even better than that. When they get near his mum, he says, "Lower the rods."
Whoa.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so he's like,
"Good China's out."
Yeah. He's like, "Uh-oh, Mum's here." You know. And it's described as Coriolanus goes about about observing the customs as if he were meeting a superior power.
Wow.
Yeah, he lays aside all the insignia of his own office.
That's crazy. And
he embraces his mother, kisses her, caresses her, says hi to his wife and stuff, you know, hugs his children. It's all very nice.
Yeah.
And then Vitruvio's like, yeah, well, this is how it should be, you know, this is the sort of respect I deserve.
I'm glad to see you still remember some of your manners, Coriolanus.
Yeah. I raised you to be a good boy.
Yeah. And now I hear you're going to attack Rome. What's all this nonsense now?
Yes.
And you and your friends can go and play somewhere else.
Yeah, and she says to him, she's like, "Look, I'm interested in having a conversation in the open." He's like, "Oh, really? You don't want to just come into my tent?" And she's like, No.
I thought you meant like, let's be open with each other.
Never mind. No.
Yeah.
She's like,
literally in the open.
Yeah, I want to speak in the open. Take me through to the general's tribunal. I mean, that's where you like to hang out, isn't it?
Yeah.
You know.
Your command of friends.
Yeah,
so adorable.
And he's like, okay. And he gets them he gets his lictors to remove the seat. So that he doesn't occupy a higher position than his mother.
My God, seriously.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, this is really sweet. Oh, you can see where the mama's boy trope is starting to emerge here.
If they really felt like this, I'm starting to wonder what the hell the Senate was doing, not sending these people in the first place.
Yeah, and just send the women. I mean, the guy gets down on the ground. He's like, "What can I do?" Oh
my
God.
Tell me, Mummy. What can I do for you?
Yeah, and then Vitruvius starts speaking.
Of course.
And, you know, being mum, she's kind of like, "Look, you know, I came all this way to see you, son, you know, and..."
I'm very disappointed in how you turned out.
Yeah, and it's like, and the fact that I've had to do this is a little bit, frankly, disappointing. And Coriolanus interrupts her. He's like...
Oh, really? To say, I forget everything.
He tries to preempt her. He's like, "You've come demanding the impossible." Like... He's like, I guess why you're here.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
And he's like...
There's 3 other embassies were a bit of a giveaway.
He's like, "So here are the terms, Mum.
Yeah.
If the Romans will restore the Volscians their land.
Yeah.
And, you know, it'll be fine. I'll put an end to this war. That's all we want."
Yeah.
And he's like, "So, you know, just so we're clear, that's where we're at, Mum." And he's like, "I know you probably want some things. You're going to beg me and stuff, and we will talk about injustice and bitter foes and things.
When it comes down to it, I want the land."
Yeah, and he's like, "You know what's going to be easier at this point? Why don't you and Volumnia, my best wife, why don't you switch sides?"
What?
You hear already.
Oh, right. I thought... Sorry. Again, misunderstood you. I thought it meant like switch sides with each other. Never mind. Yeah.
Ew.
Exactly. Well, you know, he seems
More
very close to
eatable.
his mother, and yeah. Anywho, yes, go.
And he's like, I've been welcomed into the Volscian fold.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
know, this is now my fatherland.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
You be super honoured, etc.
Yeah,
Forget
yeah.
the shame, forget the lost
Yeah.
reputation.
it's going to be
All would be good.
fine.
Yeah, see, that's interesting. That doesn't really come up in Livy or Plutarch. In Plutarch, they pretty much skip just to lamenting and talking about how tough everything's been. You know, and how, look, I know it's really hard because I'm putting you in this rotten place where you either have to, you know, betray the Volscians, ruin the Volscians and that sort of thing, and they've trusted you and that sort of stuff. On the other hand, Rome and us and stuff, you know, we suffered a lot. We suffered loss of reputation. We're like dirt beneath people's feet and stuff like that, of course. And they work on him and they work on him and they work on him until finally they just basically throw themselves at his feet and they're just like, no! And he finally says, all right, jeez, fine.
Settle down. I don't like it when people cry.
Yeah, exactly. Whereas in Livy, good old Livy, so succinct, I believe there's a phrase that would sum it up quite nicely, and this is pretty much all he says. So that women by tears and prayers preserve the city which the men were not able to preserve by arms.
Oh.
Yeah.
I see, that's very short, isn't it?
Well, I mean, he does go into a little bit more detail, but essentially, yeah, he basically just says that Coriolanus, although holding out at first, eventually gives in, and it's much more succinct than that.
Oh, I feel like that doesn't give, you know, Coriolanus anywhere near his due. I know. Because Vitruria hasn't even gotten to her big arguments yet.
Oh, yeah, she does have a kick-ass speech, I must admit. Yeah, sorry, continue.
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
well, you know, go for it.
Okay. I'll just give you a little bit of a glimpse about her, and in Livy's account, his names are like it was in Dionysius, just Plutarch is different. Okay, so she says, "Was it for this that age has been lengthened out, that I might behold you in exile, and afterwards an enemy? Could you lay waste this land which gave you birth and education, whatever degree of anger, whatever thirst of vengeance might have occupied your mind on your march? Did you not, on entering its borders, feel your passion subside? Within those walls are my house and my guardian gods, my mother, my wife, my children. Had I never been a mother, then Rome would not have been now besieged. Had I not a son, I might have died free and left my country free. But for my part, there is no suffering to which I can be exposed that will not reflect more dishonour on you than misery on me, and be my lot as wretched as it may, I am not to endure it long. Let these claim your regard, who if you persist can have no other prospect but either untimely death or lasting slavery." Ooh. Yeah, and then all the children and his wife and stuff embrace him, and this is how they get the better of him, I think.
And he's like, "No, guys,
yeah.
I don't want to let you all down."
Yeah, so you're right in that. In Livy's account, he was a bit resistant at first, but he's much quicker to be won over. Yes.
Well, it takes some time.
Okay,
Yeah, Vitruria, she's working in
Yeah.
Dionysius' account.
Yeah.
She's like, you know, I'm interested in moderation.
Yeah. Oh my god, this
The
theme
old,
again.
old moderatio.
The old moderatio.
So, and it's like, and fine, you know, if you withdraw your forces and we make a truce for a year, we can all start negotiating. But if you try to force something like this,
Yeah.
it's not going to work, is it? And she starts trotting out a whole bunch of old sort of like maxims of like, you know, Roman wisdom. Any peace is preferable to any war.
What? No way the Romans said that.
Apparently. A voluntary agreement between friends is more secure than concession extorted by necessity.
Well, yeah, but look at the position Coriolanus was in.
It is the part of wise men, when they seem to be prosperous, to husband their good fortune, for when their fortunes become low and paltry, to submit to nothing that is ignoble. And she's like, look, so like all of this is talking towards moderatio and reasonableness. So if you refuse to accept the Romans' proposals, you know, it's going to be a problem because...
Well, yeah.
you know, the command of the army, you could resign it. Make yourself neither a traitor.
Compromise, you say.
Yeah, like resign. It's going to be fine. Are you afraid that the Volscians are going to be ungrateful if you start negotiating now? They shouldn't be. Look at everything that you've achieved for them. And you won them all of that stuff in the countryside. They've got so much beauty they don't even know what to do with it anymore.
I'm not sure I see her point there. I kind of think I think the Volscians will still be mad.
And she's like, look, they should be grateful. And she's like, and you should consider what's going on in Rome. The country's been unwell.
Oh yeah, sick with a disease called greed.
And she basically toes the line with like, populist rule is bad. You're right, my son. You're right. And she's like, but you know,
flattery will get you anywhere.
Just because the country is sick doesn't mean you should turn against it. I mean, you're one of the best. You need to be helping out. Like, what are you doing?
Oh, she's wily. She's wily.
She's like, you've walked away when we need you.
Yeah.
And she's like, think of the other people who have had high levels of virtue, who have been exiled from Rome and then have not taken vengeance because they're virtuous. She's like, I'm just going to bring out one example for that.
Naughty Coriolanus.
Yeah, she's like, there have been others like you who've been exiled, and they've just gone quietly into exile.
Just fine,
yeah, they've just done the right thing and not stirred up any trouble. And she's like, so, have you not taken sufficient revenge already? You've destroyed cities. You've destroyed cities of their allies.
Yeah, fair
You know, you've razed cities, you've stolen grain, you've enslaved people. It's fine. Like, you've done enough.
Yeah.
And she's like, if you just keep going, it's just going to become offensive.
Yeah.
Let's face it.
I like it.
Let's face it. And then she does the mother thing. You will be mine forever.
Oh, no.
And to me, before all others, you will owe gratitude for your life. And you will oblige me in everything I ask without alleging any excuse.
Damn, girl.
I am your mother.
I'm sorry, Dr. G, we have to have an audible high five there. Yeah.
It's like, you owe me everything. And you are definitely going to do what I say right now.
I love this one.
I beg of you not to make war upon your country, and I stand in your way if you resort to violence.
Yeah, that's pretty powerful.
So don't you even try it. So she's like, the first sacrifice with your own hand to the Furies will be your mother who opposes you. So it's like, if you think you can get away without having the guilt of matricide, you're thought wrong. No, just
Brutal.
no. You can either kill me or yield.
Nice. Seriously in love with Dionysus' version of this woman.
So she's like, I've sacrificed everything for you, and what do I have to show for it? So
To
this
be
is
fair,
where
it seems
we
like that
get
is
to the
true.
Livy
She
moment.
did practically raise him by herself, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, look, you were orphaned by your father, and I raised you by myself. And I didn't remarry. Didn't remarry. I had the chance to move on with my life and to start a new family, and guess what? I didn't. Everything I've done for you.
Everything I do it for.
And she's like, and when have I ever possessed a spirit cheerful on your account? Never. You're always making me unhappy, always going off to war, always being the first over the walls. I spend all of my time worrying about you, and then you get to this point, and here I am worrying about you again.
Oh, yeah, well.
She's like, I'm most unhappy seeing you in the middle of this civil strife.
God, no wonder he says, all right.
And he's like, should I even call my life a life at this point? You've left me. You always make me concerned. The children are desolate without you.
Yeah.
I spend my life in squalor.
My God, I thought she was ready. I thought she was done.
And she's like, look, if I die, I mean, I hope I end up somewhere nice, because then I've got something to look forward to, don't I? And she's like,
this is too
so it doesn't really matter what you do, because if you send me away and you don't do anything, I'm going to kill myself.
We'll have a creature of her. Nice.
And then what are you going to do? So there's no way out of this. I'm going to die anyway.
Right, well, safe to say, the one thing that all our accounts agree on, though, is that the women work. Whatever they say, whatever they do, tears, anger, guilt, it works. Coriolanus agrees to back off.
He does. Now. And the Volscians are kind of like, wow, your mum. Oh, look, I can see where she's coming from, eh?
Really? Hilarious. See, in my accounts, the Volscians are just, understandably furious. Because he hasn't, done what they thought they were going to do. So in Livy's account, he's not quite sure what happens to Coriolanus. One version is that after taking the Volscians away from Rome, he dies under the effects of their resentment.
Oh, ouch.
Now, I know. I don't know what that means as in they killed him. but they're not sure. But there is another version where he actually lives a very lonely, long life in bitter exile, dwelling on all the many mistakes that he made, regretting everything. So that's kind of sad and bitter. Plutarch, of course, has a much more scandalous account. I will wait and see. What is your account, Coriolanus?
Okay. So Coriolanus, after this moment, like the speech is over, and he's kind of just like, look, you've won, Mum. You've won.
Good on you, Mum.
He's like, you've saved your country, but you've ruined me.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, now let's all get ourselves inside and actually have a private chat.
Yeah.
You, me, the wife, the kids. All right, everybody.
Get the family together.
Yeah. He looks around at the Volskian audience. The Volskians are like, whoa, that's some mother. And he's like, look, I'm going to have some private time with the family at this point. And everyone's like, probably for the best, dude.
Yeah, we didn't really need to see all of that.
Yeah, and then they strategize in the tent.
Wow.
Apparently.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay.
They come to some decisions that they will have a chat with the Senate.
Yeah.
That Coriolanus should break camp, lead his army through the friendly territory, should ask the Volskians if he can get out of, hanging around with them anymore, and if he can just resign the command that he's been given.
Okay, so they've got optimistic hopes then.
Yeah, and they're a bit worried that maybe he'll be killed by an angry mob.
I think that's high on the risk of possibility.
Yeah. But nevertheless, Coriolanus then assembles the troops, and he's like, guys, you just saw what happened. He's like, please forgive me. I think we've all got to go home.
She's my mum. What can I do?
Yeah, and he's like, so, I'm going to come with you guys, and, let's work this out. Because I think, the circumstances have changed, haven't they? And they're all like, oh, yeah, all right. So they march back through friendly territory.
Wow, that's very understanding of it.
Yeah. In the meantime, back in Rome.
Of course, yes.
The Senate gets very excited and they vote lots of honours to the women.
Oh, I know. They get a temple, don't they?
Yes. This is an important temple.
Isn't every temple important? Actually?
Well, yes. But I like this one because it's for the ladies.
Me too. It is for the ladies. Yes.
They dedicate a temple to Fortuna Muliebris.
The fortune of the women?
Fortune of the ladies.
Nice.
Of the women, yes. So this temple is supposed to be very good.
Well, in some accounts, the women actually, in true Coriolanus sort of style, the women are actually offered sort of, anything they want, and they choose just a temple, don't they?
Yeah, they decide to not go for individual honours.
Yeah.
They decide to opt for a temple.
Very modest.
Everybody's excited by that. And they also get awarded a statue to go up in that temple, and then the women fund another statue as well. So it's got two statues. This is all a big deal,
yeah.
Yeah, and they choose Valeria, obviously, to be the first priestess of this new cult. Because she's the one who kicked the ball and got it all started.
Yep, very prestigious to be princess.
And they get it done in just a couple of years. It's built really quickly. In any case, as much as I'd like to go into the detail of those things, if I shift back to the situation with Coriolanus and the Volskians, now they get back into friendly Volskian country.
Okay.
And he's like, look, here's the situation. You saw this thing with my mother. Look, I think I need to resign command.
Yep.
And everyone's kind of like, oh, all right. Except for the young men. And Tullius. Tullius Attius.
Yep. His once BFF.
They're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, well, unsurprisingly, given that Plutarch already hinted that there was discontent in the wind, I'm not surprised that I'm in sync with you on this, in that they are plotting Coriolanus' downfall.
They are plotting his downfall, but wait for it. It gets even better.
Ooh, okay.
So Tullius has long been jealous. It now comes out in Dionysius' narrative that if Coriolanus succeeded, that he would...
in his shadow.
And that he would sort of overthrow Tullius's leadership of the Volskians. And so they get together, Tullius with his other factional friends, and they bring charges against Coriolanus.
Ooh, you just can't get it. Break this guy.
My comment there is lols.
Yeah.
So they put some charges against him. That's not so good.
Yeah.
And he's called to assembly and summoned to trial.
My goodness.
I feel like he's going through the ringer again.
He is a little bit. But you see, Tullius seems to be a bit scared, in a sense, of this whole situation because Coriolanus, as we know, is a master of rhetorician. And Tullus seems to be scared that when Coriolanus starts speaking, the effect he's having on people indicates that, maybe there's actually a chance that he's going to get off here. Is that also in yours? Or?
Oh, yeah. He's quite concerned. So Tullus gets into this situation where they're debating each other publicly in the lead up to this trial. And because they both hold a high general command, one can't dominate the other necessarily. So they both had to have equal time in the public space.
Ooh, that's
and
tough.
Tullus decides to strip him of his Coriolanus of his generalship.
Wow.
As a way of bringing things back down to a much more manageable playing field for him, because then they can just arrest him. Whereas Coriolanus hasn't stepped down at all yet, because he's still talking about what he should do.
Okay.
And then he's been accused, and then he's been like, there's going to be a trial, and he's like, well, okay, I'm just going to hold the course.
He just never learns.
No, he does not.
Okay, in my account, at one of these meetings, they decide they're just going to take matters into their own hands. And so Tullus and his little faction fall upon him in the middle of all this and just kill him right there and then. So that there's no way he can wriggle out of what has been done. However, the Volscians as a whole, like most of them actually quite like Coriolanus, and they're not happy at the way things have been done at all. So it's kind of a bit of a weird, end in Plutarch. The Romans certainly don't acknowledge anything about his passing. They don't honour him. They don't do anything nasty. I don't know what they could really do, like travel and dance in his grave. I'm not sure. They just allow the women to mourn him for the set period of mourning, and that's just about it. And yeah. Plutarch paints a picture.
That is a very lackluster finish.
It is a lackluster finish. The only thing that Plutarch goes on to say, and I guess this is the message of the story, I don't know, that the Volscians go on to have a horrible life as a people.
Turns out the Volscians are terrible people.
Pretty much, yeah. Tullus, of course, dies in battle, but yeah, basically they lose subsequent battles and they end up becoming the subjects of Rome. Big surprise. And so it seems
so Rome gets their shit together, eh?
Well, yeah, I mean, this is obviously meant to be down the track, but it seems to be almost like the lesson is about the Volscians, not about Coriolanus.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Plutarch, but I don't know.
Very interesting.
Yeah, anyway, that's pretty much where Plutarch ends up.
Dionysius sort of takes it in a slightly different direction.
Yeah.
So we certainly have the moment where Tullus is getting his faction together, and they're all like, hit him, stone him, and they stone Coriolanus to death.
Wow,
so,
really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So perhaps ironically, we have Coriolanus killed by an act of violence without a trial, which is kind of what the plebeians initially wanted. They wanted to throw him off the Tarpeian Rock.
This is true.
Without having a trial. And they're like,
really, the message is you can't escape your fate.
So it turns out you're the bad guy.
Well, my goodness.
So there's this situation now because this man who's all about justice.
Yeah. What an unjust death.
Has gone in a very unjust way. And
mind you, he doesn't actually end his trial in Plutarch's version. I mean, it just happens. But yes, yeah.
And so we have this sort of moment where the Volscians are kind of as a whole, are kind of a bit sad. So they actually are
because of Coriolanus dying? Or?
Yeah, because he's done so much for them.
Oh, right, so it's kind of like in Plutarch, they miss him a little bit.
They decide to honour him. They dress him up in the best garb. They put him on a couch. Yeah.
Okay, far be it for me to judge.
Yeah. They ordered all the booty that he'd managed to collect to be brought into the centre of town to as a significant gesture.
So they can all look at it and go,
Yeah, and so there was lots of lamentations and tears as they had a public funeral for Coriolanus.
Wow.
And there's first offerings and sacrificial victims. They make a really big deal about it.
So it sounds like he gets more honours in the Volscian land than in Roman land.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, the Volscians are sort of we killed him, but yeah, he was also kind of great. And then Dionysius has his summing up. And he's Coriolanus, what are the pros? He was a great general.
Goes without saying. Yeah.
Practiced justice.
Yep.
What a guy.
Yeah.
Didn't suffer fools.
That's certainly true. Yes, I can definitely say that. Yep.
High-minded. You know, interested in virtue. Coriolanus the cons, a slightly longer paragraph, I might add.
Coriolanus the commons.
The cons.
Oh, sorry.
As in
I think
pros and cons.
He doesn't like the commons. What are you talking about?
Reconciled only in death.
Okay, let me guess. Arrogant.
Yep.
Uncompromising.
Yes.
Inflexible.
Yes.
Traitor.
Yes. Harsh and severe.
Yep.
Immoderate.
Doesn't kiss babies on election day.
Yeah, pretty much. He doesn't have any disposition to conciliate or placate others.
Well, yes, that is very true.
Nor that charm which adorns all human actions.
Okay.
Rather unfun at parties.
Right, okay, gotcha. So in the end, does he feel that the cons outweigh the pros, or
well, he thinks it's a bit unfortunate that for somebody who's so interested in justice, that his severity sort of means that injustice is kind of what is the result, and that the plebeians have to suffer for that, and because he can't make reasonable concessions.
Yeah.
And so it's like, well, obviously this is a problem.
Well, and this actually kind of is a good place to end, I suppose, because it leads nicely into our next episode. In that sense, the way Coriolanus's history has been crafted by pretty much all of our accounts, it is a tragedy. Because you've got someone with so much promise and so many gifts and talents, and someone who's not necessarily evil, but who ends up in this very unfortunate situation nonetheless. And that's perhaps why later people would pick it up and write a tragedy about it. Boom!
Interesting segue.
Yeah, now you see where I'm going.
Stay tuned for our next episode where we consider the reception of Coriolanus.
Bye.